Well, it looks like it's finally happened. Someone's actually managed to win a GT with Deathwatch in 9th edition. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today we're talking about a Deathwatch army list that a certain Mr. John Lennon has commanded to victory at the Onslaught Grand Tournament. It's really quite big news for the Deathwatch, who've had a codex that's been really underperforming throughout 9th edition. According to 40k Stats Center at Grand Tournaments, Deathwatch haven't even placed once in the top 4 of any Grand Tournament since 9th edition began, let alone won any, so going 5-0 with them at an event really is pretty spectacular. Their codex dropped fairly soon after the 9th edition Space Marine decks, and I'll be honest, it didn't really feel like much of an upgrade compared with the previous one. They did gain a bunch of fairly powerful and fun tricks, things like decent psychic powers, the Dominus Aegis, and a few interesting kill team builds, but they really felt they lost just as much as they gained, if not more. Special issue ammunition was toned down, taken away from a bunch of the Space Marine units, and that really shifted the way that you'd have to play Deathwatch. You can't just rely on special issue ammunition spam to hoover the enemy off the table. I think perhaps there might be a bit of a chicken and egg scenario going on. People don't really think that the Deathwatch army is all that strong, therefore they don't play it, therefore they don't get any results, and the cycle continues like that. Since 9th edition began, there's only a handful of games registered at GTs who actually ran Deathwatch as their primary faction. It is really quite cool indeed to see someone break the mold like this, with really quite an interesting style of Deathwatch list as well, really dread heavy. And speaking of which, thank you very much to Mr. Pika from the Discord server for this very nicely painted Redemptor Dreadnought, which is definitely an appropriate picture for the Deathwatch list at hand. So here is John Lennon's list, run at the Onslaught Grand Tournament in Florida, winning 5 out of 5 games, and I believe he's going to be demonstrating it against the Sisters of Battle today on his own Art of War channel, so I'd recommend checking them out. I'll leave the link in the video description if you'd like to see how it actually works in game. Most of it does look quite intuitive from the way that it's laid out, but I've no doubt that as I'm not the person who'd played and designed this, there'll be plenty of subtleties that I am missing. Roughly speaking, the list is split in 2 halves. 5 very shooty dreadnoughts supported by a trio of really good buffing characters, using the very best of the Space Marine and Deathwatch codex to make those dreadnoughts tougher than they should be and a lot shootier. The rest of the list is 3 kill teams and a unit of incursors to run around the table, scoring objectives, and maybe dealing some precision damage to infantry. The Dreadnought gun battery consists of 3 Redemptor Dreadnoughts, each with a Macroplasma Incinerator, Onslaught Gatling Cannon, and Icarus Pod, pretty much the default loadout for them in my eyes, and then 2 of the Relic Contemptor Dreadnoughts with twin Volkite Culverins, which I made an entire video on the other week if you would like to check it out. Almost every second Space Marine tournament list seems to use these days. Really good rate of fire, and particularly nasty with these buffing characters. Leading the army, the Warlord is a Primaris Captain. The Indomitus loadout with a mastercrafted power sword and relic shield, a nice survivable loadout that's dangerous in melee. He takes perhaps my single favourite relic from the Deathwatch Codex, the Dominus Aegis. That's the relic storm shield that basically gives a 5+ invul save to any core units within 6 inches. That's obviously going to be going on the Redemptor Dreadnoughts. It's a really good combination that makes them far more survivable to enemy fire. He then has 2 Warlord traits, which he can do via one of the Deathwatch stratagems. Rights of War to grant nearby core units Obsec, so those dreadnoughts can take objectives away from non-core units, and also Nowhere to Hide, which is the Ignores Cover aura to make sure that you're not getting any benefits to your save from light cover from those dreadnoughts. That could be particularly helpful on the Volkite Dreads too with their low AP. There's then a Lieutenant in Reaver armor. He provides some reroll 1s to wound, meaning you wouldn't necessarily even need mission tactics. And he also carries the Vulcan pattern Auspicator, which is a buff against fly units, so any core units within 6 inches of him will get the very powerful buff of +1 to hit against fly targets. Perhaps quite a good meta pick at the moment, seeing as those crafty Drakari with their raiders are everywhere. Being a Reaver Lieutenant means that he's really quite cheap as well, but it grants him access to a couple of handy stratagems as well should he need to use them. Terror troops for a couple of command points can make the enemy lose objectives secured. Certainly not bad if you're tag teaming with either the captain or any of the objective secured troops, and also being able to use shock grenades, which means that enemy targets can't either overwatch and can hand out an annoying -1 to hit penalty if something gets too close that needs that debuff on it. Killing Obsec though could be really powerful, doubly so when you park him on an objective, and that ability will continue to function within a 3-inch aura until the start of your next command phase. Finally, on the HQ side, there's a Primaris Tech Marine, upgraded to the Master of the Forge for healing 3 wounds on dreadnoughts per turn. He uses the Deathwatch specific Warlord traits to allow him to take a Dark Angel's Warlord trait, which is brilliant strategist for some command point farming. He'll make one of the dreadnoughts hit on a 2+, blaze away with a bit of fire with his Forge Bolter, And he also carries another one of the best relics that the Deathwatch have to offer, the Tome of Ectoclades, which is a once per game ability where you can choose an enemy datasheet, and any core units within 6 inches of him will get a big 4 rerolls to wound against that target whenever they make a shooting attack. That's going to be pretty solid on virtually anything, but those Volkite Contemptors in particular are going to love this. Rerolling wound rolls means that they have far higher chance of getting those mortal wounds on 6s, and it means they're just going to have a turn where they rinse one key target right off the table. It seems like this character castle could march forward alongside the Redemptors and seize hold of the midfield primary objectives and obsec them away against all comers. From there we move on to the troops choices. There's a unit of 5 Incursors, doing what they'd normally do in a Space Marine list, holding down at midfield objectives early and potentially screening the core of the army against enemy incursions that want to be coming in turn 1. There's then the meat of the troops with 3 big 10-man Proteus kill teams, each of them containing 5 veterans with Deathwatch shotguns, 4 veteran bikers armed with chainswords, and 1 Vanguard veteran with a storm shield, and 2 out of the 3 have lightning claws instead of chainswords. These can combat squad. 4 veteran bikers and a Vanguard veteran can be moving very fast indeed. They'll all have OBSEC as their troops choice, and the veteran bikers are really quite an efficient unit with those chainswords. They get an extra attack compared with regular bikers and don't cost any more points whatsoever. For the points they actually spit out more attacks than the Primaris Outriders, despite their extra +2 attacks rule. The Vanguard veteran can add a bit of survivability with a storm shield, and also allows the unit to be able to fall back and shoot if you're willing to sacrifice a command point. The Vanguard vet might also allow you to use the Melter Bomb stratagem if you really want to. Could be a funny way to casually off a vehicle with 2d3 mortal wounds. These are really nice fast threatening OBSEC units, and they'll be able to deal with enemy infantry quite nicely, spitting out a bunch of bolt shots on the move, and then plenty of chainsword attacks in close combat. Finally, the other half of the combat squad are the 3 units of 5 veterans with shotguns, and I believe their primary purpose is to do actions and hold objectives, though of course if any of foolhardy enemies get too close, they'll be eating some fairly efficient damage for how much the models cost, with a choice of some anti-elite damage 2 firepower, or essentially an 8-inch flamer profile with Worm's Breath. The damage output does look nice, but I think in general their primary purpose is going to be holding down objectives and performing actions, such as raising banners or retrieving Octarius data that is the new deploy scramblers. Otherwise for secondaries, it looks like the new Domination, which was renamed Stranglehold, is in effect. It's a bit easier now on the big missions, 3 objectives and holding 1 more than your opponent, and the Deathwatch do have a couple of other quite useful objectives, such as the one where they get 1 victory point for every single Xenos unit destroyed. That's potentially quite a powerful one against Drukhari. If you deal a decent amount of damage to the army, you're going to be guaranteed to get quite a lot of points. So in any case, it's really cool to see the Deathwatch doing well. Congrats to Mr. Lennon, and I thoroughly recommend checking out their Art of War channel that I'll link down below. They've got a bunch of the best players in the world posting a lot of really good 40k content. I look forward to hearing what you have to say in the comments below, particularly any other insights to the list or how it was played. If you've enjoyed the video and you'd like to see more like it, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, where I'll most certainly try and keep my eye on any interesting tournament results like this. Finally, if you have been enjoying the videos on the channel a fair bit, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics has a Patreon page down in the video description. Channel patrons do get a fair few rewards, seeing certain new videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry to the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits every month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support the channel, then the link is down in the video description below. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.